Hi, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, you have this installment of Recent Reads. I'm actually recording this intro after recording all of the summaries or reviews for the week because as I was going through the clips that I took off my phone, I realized I never had an introductory clip this week. It's been a long feeling week, and it shows in the fact that I didn't even remember to film an intro. So I'm going to throw you to Past Jenny with a bit of an update and the rest of the reviews for the week. Okay, so I'm gonna update real quick. I don't have a reading update, but I came home and I had two packages. I'm gonna go ahead and open this one. I already opened the other one. This one I know. Stay tuned for a story about the other one. This one was a treat to myself and I'm so excited about it. This is Goth Girl Queen of the Universe. This is one I had as an ARC and really enjoyed. So I knew to expect this one. The other one I looked at it and it's like Barnes & Noble. I haven't ordered anything from Barnes & Noble. And then I opened it and it's a book. It's this book, Under the Naga Tail. And I remember looking at it and going, oh, that sounds really interesting. It's a true story, so I don't know if it's a memoir or fictionalized. However, it's talking about one man's escape from under the genocidal regime in Cambodia. So I was really intrigued by it. I don't ever remember ordering this. I don't think I ordered it. I went back and I looked at my finances, which are up to date, and it's everything that's come through. I have no idea how I got this book, why I'm dropping it, why I have this book or anything, or who sent it to me. If you sent it to me, thanks. It's perplexing, but hey, I'm not going to complain about a free book. Okay, it's a little bit later. I wanted to come back on and say that I figured it out. I did not expect a book from Barnes & Noble because most of these have been sent individually from the publisher, like from the publisher itself. But this is a book that I won on Library Thing, and I don't know who put it up, and I figured it out. Always look at the shipping label or like whatever you call that, the manifest, receipt, whatever. And it had sold to, and it had Dewey Tyler Memorial Library, and then it had shipped to me. I'm like, okay, I didn't recognize the Memorial Library thing, so I Googled it. Not sure how they're connected still. However, I saw a little thing on there that had the Dewey Tyler Memorial Library. Sorry about the lack of focus. So, I saw the thing that had the library, the address where it was sold to, and Library Thing, and I went, oh, so this is a book that I won through Library Thing. It's the best finished copy. It's clearly been sold. What am I saying? It's clearly been already published. This is not an ARC copy. This is a fully published and really nice book, and I won it, and it retails for $27. So, okay, I'll take that. Okay, so we've actually reached Sunday, and I have read a few books, but I didn't do updates as I went this week. I don't know, it just, timing didn't work. So I'm going to talk about the books that I have read this week. One of them, and I'll start off with it, I'm not sure if I've already talked about yet or not. If so, I will obviously insert that clip next and then just go on about my day. That book is Lazy Bee by Sandra Day O'Connor and H. Alan Day, which is her brother, goes by Alan. This is another one of those books that was on my oldest TBR list. I think I put those books on the list in 2013. Again, I ended up with something that I did not expect. I expected this to be more of a memoir because it does say growing up on a cattle ranch in the American Southwest. I think one other subtitle says recollections from growing up on a cattle ranch. And I thought it would be way more of memoir style, but this whole book feels like it wasn't actually written by her. It feels like it's a biography of sorts of different people on the ranch, her parents, other ranch hands, the ranch itself. and it only occasionally mentions her and has, you know, first person in it, and it just felt detached, strangely detached for what it was supposed to be. It was a really quick read, got it done. Okay, that's fine, great. It made me consider, am I going to read the third book that by her that I had on my list? It's still tentatively on it because that is what I want, and hopefully that will get it. And that's more of her recollections from the Supreme Court. I forget what the title of that one is. So maybe, but this is definitely my lowest rated of the month. Not because it's bad, but because what is this supposed to be anyway? Keeping on the theme of nonfiction, and this is not the order that I read them in this week because I'm talking about them all at once. That is the new, that is The New Age of Empire, How Racism and Colonialism Still Rule the World by Kendi Andrews. And I'm not sure why I went for this one next because I have complicated feelings about it. Number one, I did not read it physically. I got the audiobook version because I don't know if you can tell, that font is teeny tiny, and there was no way I wanted to read it. Even though the book itself, nice and floppy, feels great, there was no way that I wanted to go ahead and read this physically. So I read an audiobook, and the author narrates the audiobook, which I always love. He is British. I don't know, like he's first generation British. His parents were immigrants. The problem for me when it comes to this book is, number one, I wholeheartedly agree with so many of the points that he made through here. I see the evidence, I've seen the evidence in what I've read, and everything, all the points that he makes, they make sense, and I agree with him. My problem is, I think it comes from my training as a historian and how I write. When you're making these points, to me, it feels more effective to not necessarily put all the evidence first and then make your conclusions, but I think that's more of how I would have set it up. Lay out all of the evidence. Maybe have your thesis, then lay out all the evidence, and then sort of make the more moralistic statements after you have laid out all of the evidence. That's not the style that Andrews used in this. He had a lot of very strong emotional words. He made a lot of points that I resonated with, thought were powerfully said. The problem was they weren't necessarily followed up right away with the evidence to support it. And it's not like, oh, I want all of your facts. I want this book to be full of facts and information and etc. There's just a way that you can support your points more than just saying it and moving on. And for a lot of it, that's what it felt like. So I felt conflicted because, like, I agree with you. Almost all, like, not almost all of the points that you make in here, I wholeheartedly agree with and I support, and they need to be made, and I resonate with those. But it was just off in how he presented it, just slightly off, and it just felt almost nitpicky to me. And like, why am I not resonating with this? Why am I not like wholeheartedly into this book? Is it because I've read a lot of books on this topic before? I don't know. So strong book, I would definitely recommend for a lot of people. It just was not the book for me, or I wasn't the reader for it. Now we move to a book that I definitely was the reader for, and I'm so glad. I had sky-high expectations for this. This book superseded those sky-high expectations. I loved this book so much. This is exactly what I love in fantasy. I love Arabian-themed fantasy. I thought Chakraborty did an amazing job developing the political intrigue in this city. And what I loved so much about how she developed that intrigue is she showed how each of these sides develops their points and how each of these sides has a valid point to prove, but also how that can get twisted and how emotions can get caught up into it, and the actions that they take to prove their point, to support their side, aren't necessarily what they should be doing, and the consequences of how that gets twisted and the complex interactions in here. As soon as I finished reading this book, I did not want to start listening, because I went from this book to this book. As soon as I finished this book, I wanted to pick up the next one in the series. I'm like, no, you need to finish your TBR. And I did. And by the time this Recent Reads goes up, you'll see my TBR for March. And I don't have room for the sequels, but I so want to read the sequels. Speaking of sequels, we're going from the really high of probably my favorite book this week, not probably, my favorite book this week, to one that was my fiction least favorite, and that is Winterkeep, which is book 4 in the Gracing Realm series. This was a book that actually made me consider DNFing the series, even though I had only one more book left. I had mentioned last week when I read Bitter Blue, book 3, that one was only a 3.5. I didn't really resonate with it that much. It was good, but it didn't reach the levels that Fire did. Winterkeep had so many good things going for it. The world expanded tremendously. They discover a whole new continent in this world, and this new continent is like delving into like their own industrial revolution, but they have their own fantasy bit with telepathic foxes and other things. But unfortunately, in this book, Kishore does something that she doesn't do in the other ones, and she splits the narrative. Like, all of the other ones were very much entirely focused on the protagonist. And that's another thing. The first 3 are all the names of the protagonists. The 4th and 5th are not the names of the protagonists, although you could make an argument that the 5th is, and I'll talk about that in a second. Winterkeep is the place that they go. And I guess maybe the place was supposed to be the main character and they're supposed to be delving in, but she splits the narrative between so many different people. You have Gideon, you have Bitter Blue, you have the new character introduced, Lobisa. There's like 2 or 3 others. Oh, of the Fox adventure. And it just got too split. The narrative, I don't know, it was lacking because it was so split. It was so detached in third person, all of these different points of view. And then additionally, Lovisa, who I think could have made a compelling character, like if we'd focused entirely in her. I don't know. The other thing was that it was like for Lovisa, she was using sex as this tool in her political machinations. And I love political intrigue in a fantasy book. I just talked about City of Brass. The way that Kishore did the political intrigue in here and how people were manipulated, I didn't really like. Oh, another perspective was the Keeper, this sea creature. So, okay. That was really weird. That was actually the perspective that the whole book opens with, and I'm like, okay? So, I didn't really resonate with this one at all. I haven't put it through Cawpile yet. Maybe a 2.5 star. I did really like the stuff that we learned. I like how the relationship between a couple of the characters advances. But overall, this book just felt like it didn't know what it wanted to be. Then we get to Sea Sparrow. And with Sea Sparrow, I think Sea Sparrow is the biggest out of all of them. It's 603 pages. I did read it all in one day. I read it yesterday. Yes, I read an entire 600-page book in one day. Did I do anything else? Not really, but I read this book, and Sea Sparrow is now my favorite of the series. When you consider the whole novel, Fire, that last quarter, hands down, one of my favorites ever. But the first part of the book is so confusing, which is why I can't say it's my favorite overall. This book overall is my favorite. And the main character in here, Kishore, goes back to one perspective. And it's first person, and we have Hava. as the main character. And Hava is such a complex, nuanced character. She had so much that happened to her in her past that she, and present. There's so much that they go through in this book because they're on a ship and then they get shipwrecked and so much. But she's such a complex character, and how she was raised and the fact that her mother was not able to be a strong, capable mother to her because of what Lek did to her, and then the trauma that she endures by, you know, as an 8-year-old watching her father kill her mother by snapping her neck, and just recovering from that. She is dealing with how she is forming relationships because of that trauma and healing from that trauma throughout this book. The plot basically goes nowhere. This is the lowest of the stakes in all of the books, I think. But that was really good because it allowed Kishore to really explore the characters and what Hava needs and how she needs to heal. I loved the gradual unfolding of that, and I realized I am definitely a character-driven reader. I don't need a high action plot. I need a plot, which this had, but I'm definitely a character-driven reader, and because Kishore focuses so much on Hava and all of her healing and all of the nuance, and she makes mistakes and realizes that she makes mistakes, and the other characters make mistakes and they realize it and they genuinely apologize for it. Well done. Well done. This is not 5 stars. Well, maybe it will be, because Fire was 5 stars and I forgave some of the complexity, and I think this will end up being 5 stars. Just a slow, gradual build and appreciation for the book. So there you go. Those are all of the books that I read this week. I have only one book left on my TBR and I am loving it. Absolutely loving it. Listening to Rust in the Root by Justina Ireland. I have thoughts about that one, but I don't think I'll finish that today. So that will be in next week's Recent Reads. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.